Hello, everyone, and welcome to this guided workshop session on an introduction to Windows 10 management with Workspace ONE UEM. If you are investigating the Anywhere Workspace or looking for modern solutions to securely provision and manage devices in a distributed workforce, then this is the session for you. The goal for today's session is to showcase the Workspace ONE UEM solution to highlight how to keep Windows 10 devices compliant, secure, and productive for your end users. Today's session will start by discussing the Hands-on Labs infrastructure and the format to give you a better understanding of what resources you'll be working with. We'll discuss Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management, what problems it solves, and what we will complete in the lab today. And then the majority of the session will be dedicated to the lab walkthrough with a deeper dive. Here's a quick introduction to the Workspace ONE Hands-on Labs team for this year. And as you can see, we have a distributed team working from all corners of the globe to bring you this year's hands-on lab. My name is Justin Sheets. I am a senior architect, and I'll be driving this guided workshop with you today. My colleagues and lab captains are Christina Minahan, staff architect, and Darren Weatherly, senior architect. All of us are on the end user computing technical marketing team, and we're all original Air Watchers from before the VMware acquisition. We're all also authors on TechZone with links to our content here. And if you're not familiar with TechZone, it's produced and maintained by the EUC technical marketing team. It covers all things Workspace ONE and Horizon. We also have sister sites that cover other VMware products. And I highly encourage you to use this awesome technical content that the team produces to help guide you through your Anywhere Workspace journey, no matter where you may be. Now, the lab is constructed to represent the most common customer scenario, which is working with hybrid infrastructure to consume Workspace ONE UEM and Workspace ONE Hub services as cloud-based services while securely integrating with your on-premises resources. A Windows 10 virtual machine is included in the Hands-on Labs infrastructure, and we'll be using it as a demo device today. This lab automatically provisions and then destroys temporary sandbox environments for you, so you can retake these labs from scratch as much as desired to see the solution over and over again. Now, organizations globally are embracing the shift to supporting flexible work styles and overall a more distributed workforce. And this means that enabling a multimodal work style tailored to the employee, their role and their needs, whether they are a knowledge worker or a frontline employee, whether they work exclusively from home or on the road, in the office, or a combination of all of these locations, it is imperative that organizations embrace these changes. Employee sentiment towards workplace flexibility and the role of technology in enabling the multimodal work styles are opening up new opportunities for organizations all over the world to enable greater employee engagement and drive efficiencies and growth. However, this distributed workforce presents its own challenges for IT, especially when you navigate the full PC lifecycle. Let's step through some of these common struggles in each category and see if any of these sound familiar. From an onboarding perspective, onboarding remote or hybrid users can be very challenging. If issues occur, these users can't just simply take a device into a physical help desk staff for support. For policy and patching, if your users must be on the corporate network or VPN to receive policy updates or patches, then this can negatively impact the rate at which your distributed devices will receive these critical updates. And the same issue occurs with your apps. If users have to be on the corporate network or VPN to access applications, what happens when your VPNs go down or your traffic gets saturated? How do you make sure that users get the critical apps that they need in order to stay productive? And are your remote devices adequately secured? Do they have data loss prevention policies configured? It's shown that 95% of security breaches occur at the endpoint, so remote devices must be adequately secured no matter where they may go. And how do you currently support and manage remote devices when users cannot physically bring them into a help desk staff? Remote work has caused a significant uptick in IT support tickets, and IT needs consistent tooling to troubleshoot and remediate issues. Now, these traditional PC lifecycle management issues can be solved with Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management by leveraging cloud-based configurations that can distribute policies, patches, applications, and other resources to keep your devices secure, compliant, and productive no matter where they may go. There are a lot of details that we could cover here, but we're also going to be touching on these concepts during the live lab. So let's dive deeper into this during the workshop. We also provide access to apps and configurations through our Workspace ONE Intelligent Hub app, which provides a consistent user experience across all of your devices. Intelligent Hub provides a unified app catalog so that your users can get access to native, web, or virtual apps from the same place with multiple authentication options available, such as single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, and even confirming the device compliance and risk scores when integrated with Workspace ONE Intelligence. You'll see the Intelligent Hub in action during the workshop as well. Now, for the guided workshop today, we will be taking Module 2, which is the Introduction to Windows 10 Management. The full lab, HOL 2251-09, also includes 7 other modules. We have 4 platform-focused modules and then 4 modules that focus on adjacent components and solutions, such as Freestyle Orchestrator, a deeper dive into Hub services, the Workspace ONE Intelligence platform, and how to secure the Anywhere Workspace with the Secure Access Service Edge. If you're interested in any of these topics, be sure to check out the full lab experience after VMworld at labs.hol.vmware.com. Here's a logical architecture of the lab environment that I will be walking you through today. I'll access the lab through my browser with the VMware Learning Platform, which will provide me access to the main console virtual machine in the Hands-on Labs infrastructure. I'll use this main console virtual machine to connect to a Windows 10 virtual machine, which is named Win1001A. And from there, I will access and configure the cloud-based Workspace ONE UEM and Workspace ONE Hub Services sandbox that have been provisioned for me and complete the lab. So the goal for today is to complete the following major steps. I'm going to set up Hub Services in Workspace ONE UEM. This will get me access to the unified app catalog, the ability to send notifications to my devices, brand the end user experience, and more. I'll enroll a Windows 10 virtual machine into Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management, and I'm going to utilize the Windows 10 virtual machine that's provided for me in the Hands-on Lab. I will configure and deliver applications to the Windows 10 device. We'll see the difference between how we can provision apps automatically versus how to provision them on demand and the differences there. I'll modify the Windows 10 device behavior with what's called a profile. Specifically, I want to prevent my end users from unenrolling the device from management. And then we'll end this experience by showing the end user side on the Windows 10 device after all of these configurations have been made. Thank you, and let's hop over to the lab. I've navigated over to the lab and started it, and you'll see here that I have a console to access the lab. This is the main console virtual machine that I showed in the presentation. I have access to various resources in the lab, and I can access them all through this console. And then on the right-hand side, I have my full table of contents available to me in the lab. But today we're focused on Module 2, the Introduction to Windows 10 Management. So I've already navigated to that portion of the manual. We have some introduction to give you a little more information on the introduction to Windows 10 management with Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management, but we've already covered that in the presentation. So I'm going to go to the first actual step in the lab, which is going to be accessing that Win1001A machine so that we can do all of the management on the device and in the browser for the lab today. And then I can just click each of these steps to go through the instructions of the lab. So I'm going to navigate this as I go through just so you can kind of see the step and then go into some more detail. So because we're consuming cloud-based services, I need to launch Chrome, and I'll log in to the Workspace ONE UEM admin console first. So my admin console is available at hol.awmdm.com. And the sandboxes create the account based on your VMware Learning Platform email address. So I'm taking that under my jsheets at vmware.com. And the password is the same for everybody, which is this capital V, capital M, where one thing. Now, these accounts will be deleted as soon as you're done with the lab. So they're only active while you're taking the lab. And then everything is reprovisioned from scratch again when you come back. So these accounts don't remain active in our environment once you're finished. Here's the terms of service. I'll click accept. And then anytime I'm a new administrator accessing the platform, I need to just put in some recovery questions. I'm just going to put 1111 for all of these just to have something simple, and then a security pin. So there are some actions in the console which require you to have an elevated permission, such as wiping a device, anything that might be very impactful to the end user. So I followed our recommendation and put 1234 for this pin. We're going to need it at the very end of the lab. And I can close the console highlights. This is new information about what's been updated in the console, new versions. And now I have access here to the Workspace ONE UEM administrator console. So this is where I'm going to manage devices, where I'm going to manage users, where I'm going to manage my resources and apps for my deployments. So the first thing to talk about is user management in Workspace ONE UEM. We can combine UEM with access to provision our users from external sources such as Active Directory. But in this case, if you're a new administrator, you may be interested in just using a basic account in order to enroll users on devices. And in this case, we want to just show how you can create basic users. And when we say basic users, we mean that these are just local only to Workspace ONE UEM. They're not pulled in from your Active Directory or other external sources. They only exist in UEM. So to create these users, there's a quick drop down in the top, and we'll select user from this list. And then we can just put in the user's details. So I'll have the username as basic user. We'll use that standard VMware One bang password for their password. And then I'll put basic user, and I'll give them an email address in the lab domain. Then I'll click save. And then that user has been generated. I can view that user under the accounts section. And then from users list view, I can see the basic user account that I just created. I can also see that there was one already created for me called test user. So I can use both of these. They're both basic accounts. We just really wanted to show how to quickly create basic users in case you're interested in using them, maybe for testing or other simple use cases. The first major thing we want to do now is activate hub services. And we discuss here how you may integrate hub services based on if you're a new or an existing customer. But the short of it is, if you are a customer, you are entitled to Workspace ONE access when you have Workspace ONE UEM. And hub services is just a service that is co-located within access. So the information that we need to complete this integration is our access URL and then the credentials for an administrator account. Now, this isn't how you will receive these outside of the lab, but just to make things simple for the lab, we've included a text file that includes those tenant details. So I've just navigated to content, list view. I've selected this file that's been uploaded for you to consume. I'll click download and then open the text file. And again, this is a temporary tenant, so this will not be available once the lab concludes, but I can see I now have my tenant URL and my administrator credentials. So I'm ready to integrate Workspace ONE UEM with Workspace ONE Access, and that gives me access to hub services as well. So in the top right corner here, the services button, I can click Workspace ONE Hub Services to navigate to the page. And then I'll be given some information about what Hub Services is. And since I haven't configured it yet, I have the option to configure it here. So I'll click Get Started, and that will present me with the page for integration. Now, if you're an existing customer and you don't have a cloud tenant, you could click Request Cloud Tenant through here to get a Workspace ONE Access tenant URL. But in this case, we've already been provisioned one with the lab. So I'm just going to copy this URL and paste into the field. And then I'll use the administrator username that I was generated and the password that I was given. I'll click Test Connection, and I can see that the success message here validates that my credentials were able to authorize with this URL. So I can click Save to continue with the activation. And then once that's finished, I see a message saying that it was successfully activated. I can see what my Hub Services URL is here. I could reconfigure it if I need to, or launch Hub Services and navigate through the Hub Services features that we talked about before, such as if I want to create rich notifications or brand the end user experience, I would do all of those things through the Hub Services UI. However, we're not done here with the UEM side. So let's stay in this console and talk about how to enroll the Windows 10 device. So I'm already connected to the Windows 10 virtual machine from earlier, and I need to enroll it into Workspace ONE UEM. Now, usually as a customer, you would go to www.getws1.com. This would show a page based on which device you are accessing it from, informing you how to get Hub, whether you install it from an app store or download the file here. In the case of Windows 10, we make the MSI available for download on this page. You would just download it and then run the installer. In this case, we've already made it available on the device so that we don't have to download it. And I can access that through Documents, Hands-on Labs, and then the AirWatch Agent MSI. We just want to run this installer. And the install is very simple. You'll see that I only have to click through a few times. I'll accept the default install location. I'll accept the licensing agreement and then click install. Now, all this is doing is installing the Intelligent Hub agent. The next step, once this finishes, will be to close the installer, and then we'll get prompted for our environment details. Now, there are a few different ways that you can make this enrollment process simplified for your end users. You might use auto discovery so that they can put in their email address, and it will automatically detect the server that they're associated with your Workspace ONE UEM install location and the group ID that they should be enrolling into. However, that is not configured out of the box. And so we just want to show you what this experience is like as an end user if none of those options are configured. In short, what the user will be responsible for is inputting the Workspace ONE UEM server address. So in this case, it's the hol.awmdm.com endpoint where our administrator console is enrolled. Sorry, where our administrator console is installed. That's also where our device services server is installed. And that is the service that's responsible for enrolling devices and then checking in with them to make sure that they're being compliant, that commands are being sent, that the apps are being downloaded and installed, and coordinating with the device to make sure that the settings that you're configured are not just getting sent to the device, but also completed in a timely manner. You can get troubleshooting information about these processes, such as, has an app installed? Did it fail? Why did it fail? There are logs both locally on the device, as well as logs that can be retrieved through the Workspace ONE UEM Administrator console. So you have a wealth of information that you can use should something go wrong. Now that we've clicked Finish on the installer, it will take a minute or two for this screen to appear, which is when the Hub services, the Intelligent Hub app, has finished installing and is ready to be configured. While that's coming up, I'll navigate to the Devices page. And you can see here on my dashboard, it shows no enrollments because I haven't enrolled any devices. I'll go ahead and navigate to the list view, and this is where any devices that are enrolled would show up. There's one thing that I'm going to need as part of the enrollment process, which is my group ID. If I hover over my group name here, it's named after my VMware Learning Platform email address, and I have a group ID associated with this. The group ID is what will need to be input in order to enroll in this organization group. So I just want to right click and copy this value. Now, organization groups are a way of organizing your devices and users, your resources and your policies so that you can have bespoke configurations to handle all of the use cases and requirements in your organization. What we mean by that is if you need different policies and apps for your sales department than your R&D department, then you can organize your organization groups hierarchically in a way that allows for settings to be inherited or overridden. So you can save yourself some configuration by inheriting these settings across multiple organization groups, or you can overwrite them if you need more specific organizational settings for a certain team, maybe a certain region, or maybe even at a particular small group of users, like an executive group. So now that I've copied that group ID, I can come back to Intelligent Hub, and I need to put in the server address. That's hol.awmvm.com. And then I need to put in the group ID. I'll paste this that I copied from the console. And the next thing I'll be prompted for is user credentials. Now, if we had integrated with Active Directory or other external sources, I could put those users here and actually authenticate with those integrated accounts. In this case, we are just going to use the basic accounts that I created, specifically the basic user that I generated at the beginning of the lab. So I'll put in the basic user credentials and then click sign in. So once this confirms that the user was able to authenticate and that they provided the correct server and group ID settings, we'll have to just accept some basic data policies, and then we'll be shown the default Intelligent Hub landing page, which shows the user what apps and resources they have access to, which for us will be empty because we haven't configured anything yet. So I'll click I agree and then done. And then the default Intelligent Hub page will load. So I have a favorites tab, an apps tab, and a For You. Now, For You are the notifications that are sent from IT down to this device, which may be prompting them about new apps or important company updates. But they can access all of those things through the Intelligent Hub. Since I don't have any favorites, this view is empty, as well as my apps page, and no notifications either. So let's get to configuring some things for our end user to use. The first thing we're going to do is configure that device profile that we mentioned, which is going to modify how this enrolled device behaves. So right now, if I wanted to, I could go into the account settings of my Windows 10 device and unenroll this device from management, which would remove corporate policies, apps, resources, restrictions. And you may not always want that. If you have a dedicated Windows device in your corporation, you would want to make sure that these devices stay enrolled and stay compliant, especially if it's something like a kiosk device or a shared device. So let's see how to do that now. Back in the Workspace ONE UEM Administrator Console, profiles are accessible from the Resources page, then under Profiles and Baselines, and Profiles. My list of existing profiles will show up here, and if I want to add new ones, I can just click Add and then select Add Profile from the dropdown. And then I have to make a few selections. First, I need to select what platform it is, and that's because different profiles on different platforms offer different functionality. iOS has a different set of available commands than Android and Windows and so on. And so I need to pick the target platform that I'm creating this profile for, which in our case is Windows. Specifically, Windows Desktop, which is Windows 10. And then I have the context options here between user and device profile. User profile applies to just the enrolled user, where device profile applies to the entire device. So it's important to kind of understand what context you're targeting here. In our case, we want device profile. We want this to apply to the device no matter who is logged in. And then this is the default Windows profile configuration page. I need to set up some details about the profile before I start even configuring anything. These on the right are the configuration options for the tabs that you see on the left, which are called profile payloads. So the payloads each contain a set of configurations that will apply updates to the device. You can see that we have Wi-Fi, VPN, credentials, which are certificates, restrictions, and then a whole list of other items. It's a good idea to name these very explicitly what they will be accomplishing. And since I'm going to push a restriction to the device, I'm going to name this Windows Restrictions for the name. I have the option to deploy this as an automatic assignment type, optional, or based on compliance. Auto will push it to the device right away as quickly as it can. Optional will make it available to your end users or your administrators to push at a later time when they want to. So this is more of a manual use case. Think of it as an option for testing profiles, or if you just want to be able to manually apply them. And then compliance, you can trigger based on when a compliance policy is violated, such as if a device doesn't have a passcode enrolled, you could push a profile down in response to that. But I just want to leave it as auto. I want this to automatically be provisioned to my devices no matter what. And then I have to choose a smart group. Now, these are the assignments. Who or what devices will actually get this configuration? Just because they're in my organization group does not necessarily mean that they will get the resources or configurations applied to that group. The smart group is what determines this assignment. And you see that I have a few out of the box ones created for me, such as all devices or all corporate, shared, or dedicated devices. For simplicity, in today's group, I'm just going to do all devices, which is literally any Windows 10 device that enrolls into this organization group or a child group. So I've configured the basic information about the profile, what it's named, who it will be assigned to, and how it will be pushed. But I haven't actually made any restrictions. So let's go to the restrictions payload, click configure, and that will show the restrictions options that we can configure. Now, this very first restriction is the one that we're looking for. Allow MDM on enrollment is currently set to allow. I'm going to change this to block and then save and publish. And this is what's going to actually prevent my end users from unenrolling. Now, when I save and publish, I can get a list of devices this is going to affect. This is great if you have a lot of devices in your organization and you want to do some quick checking to make sure it's going to the users that you intend. So you can search and filter this, but we only have a single device. I see that it's the basic user that enrolled into this Windows 10 desktop. So I'll just click publish because this will get sent to that user and That's what I want. So I can now verify that this restriction profile exists, where it's managed by, how it's assigned, who it's assigned to, the install status. So if I ever need to come back and modify this profile, I can do so with the edit button here. Or if I need to create new profiles, I can create those here. So that's published down to the device. Before we check it, let's go on with some other configurations. So next, let's talk about delivering apps. We have two ways to deliver apps. We can do it automatically, like with our profiles, they just get distributed as soon as possible, or on demand, which is kind of like the optional prompt for profiles. We'll make the app available to the end user in Intelligent Hub, but we won't force the install, and we'll just make it available for them if they want to consume the app or not. This is great for optional apps that the employees may not need, but may be needed by maybe a subset of users or only some of the time. So let's start by uploading some apps. I'm going to go to Resources, expand the App section, click Native, and then I'm going to add some apps under the Internal tab. So I'll click Add, and then I need to provide the application binary. I'll click Upload. I'll choose a local file. And then I'm going to go back to this Documents HOL folder, and I'm going to pick one of the apps that we've already made available, like 7-Zip. And I'll click Save to upload that to the Workspace ONE UEM platform. Now, if this was a dependency app, like maybe it's required for another service like .NET, I could mark this as a dependency app, but this isn't. It's just a standalone application, 7-Zip. So I'll click Continue to start configuring this application. So you'll see here that because we've uploaded an executable, we don't know much about this file. I'm going to rename it to 7-Zip. And then if I scroll down to look at the supported processor architecture, I'm going to select 64-bit instead of 32-bit. And then I can go through and start giving some instructions about how this needs to process when UEM tries to install or uninstall it from the device. So at the bottom of the Files tab, I can input in uninstall command. So I'm going to paste the executable name and then /uninstall. This is the 7-Zip command from a command line in order to uninstall it. So if you are working with a particular executable that you're not familiar with, you can look up the details of the command line, details on how to install or uninstall a device. And this is a flexible field. You can also use a script, but this is a very simple use case where we just know one command will uninstall it. I'll go to the Deployment Options tab, and then I'm going to do the same thing under How to Install. I can see that the install context is set for the device, so I can install this on a per user or for the full device. And in this case, I want to use the command, again, the 7-Zip executable name /S. That means silent install, so the user won't have to click any prompts to get this to install on the device. I can scroll down a little bit and see that I am requiring admin privileges, not requiring the device to restart. I can set up how many times it should try to install, what's the interval in minutes and the timeout in minutes. 60 is pretty long, and 7-Zip is a small file, so I'm going to change this to something smaller, like 10 minutes. Then I can go down to the bottom, and under my when to call install complete, this is what will tell Workspace ONE UEM when the application has actually been installed to the device. I'm going to click Add under Defining Criteria. And this lets you pick a set of pre-built-in criteria to evaluate. I'll select when the file exists, and then I'm going to pass the path where the 7-Zip file, the executable, the actual program that gets installed will be installed to on the device to check. So I will say when this file exists on the device, that's how I'll know that it's been installed. I'll click Add. I could have more than one defining criteria. if I needed to, but this use case will be all that I need. I can upload an icon for my users, but I'm not going to deal with that for this application. So it will just have this default Windows icon, but it is a good idea to include these to make it easier for your users to find apps just based on searching through a catalog with the icons available. I want to assign this to my users, so I'll click Save and Assign. And then I need to set up and name the distribution. So I will keep this very simple. Again, I'm going to send it to all of my Windows 10 devices, so I'll just name it All Devices. I need to select the group it's going to, so I'm going to select that All Devices group that was created for me. And now I have the ability to select whether this is sent on demand or as an automatic application. I'm going to leave it as on demand, meaning not every user gets 7-zip automatically installed, but if they need it, it's already in their app catalog and they can click a few buttons just to get the application. And I'm going to make sure that it's displayed in my app catalog. I could hide it, but in this case, I want my users to be able to interact with it. This is all I need to send it as an on-demand application to all of my Windows 10 devices. So I'll click Create. Now, I could have more than one assignment if I needed to, but this covers my simple use case. So I'll click Save to continue. I'm going to get a list of previewed devices that this will be added to or maybe removed from if I modified my assignments. This looks good. I'm sending it to my enrolled Windows 10 device, so I'll click Publish. And now the 7-zip app has been assigned to that device as on demand. Now let's take a look at adding an app, not just as a different file type. So we added an exe. This time we're going to add an MSI, and we're going to see what it's like set up in auto deployment. So I'll go back to my apps view, internal, add application file. I'm going to click upload, but this time I have an MSI that I'm going to use instead. So I've actually uploaded Workspace ONE Assist, which is part of the Workspace ONE platform. It allows administrators to remotely view and control devices as a remote troubleshooting option. So I'm going to upload, select that MSI, then click Save, and that will import it into the Workspace ONE UEM Administrator console. And then, just like 7-zip, we're going to start stepping through and configuring the details of the application. If it is a dependency app, what's its name, those types of things, how it will be installed, and so on. Now that it has uploaded, I'll click Continue. And let's talk about some of the key differences from MSIs versus EXEs. I can see the name was appropriately pulled out of the MSI. It wasn't just the name of the file. The app version was correctly pulled out of the MSI. I'm going to update the supported processor architecture to 64 bits. And then I'll go to the Files tab. I'm going to scroll down. And under the app uninstall process, I can see that I don't have to configure any of these details with the MSI. It already knows how to uninstall it. Same thing with under the deployment options. I can see that the MSI exec command is set up to quietly install Workspace ONE Assist. So I didn't have to input any of the install command details. I can still change my intervals and my timeouts. I'll make this something smaller, like 10 minutes again. And I can see that the installer reboot and success exit codes have been pulled from the MSI as well. When to call install complete, I also don't need to put any additional criteria. So this is a much better experience for my IT administrators. They don't have to configure all of these settings like I did with an EXE. Under the Images tab and the icon, I'm going to click this area to provide my Workspace ONE Assist file. And this will just make it easier for my users to find it in the app catalog. And then I can click Save and Assign. The app is now ready for my end users to consume. I had much less configurations than when configuring my EXE. And now I just need to do the same thing and create a distribution. I'll name it All Devices again. I'll select my All Devices group. And here's the difference. I want to make it an auto application. So this is what the change will be that determines if it's auto or on demand. You can see that I can allow notifications to be hidden. I can allow users to defer the install, which means they could push this automatic app to install at a later date, but we will still eventually install it. And then if it's displayed in the app catalog, which allows them to re-download an app if something happens, or maybe if they unenroll it, lose the app, gets corrupted, they need to reinstall. This just makes it easier for them to re-access that application in the catalog. So we'll click Create. I can see the assignment was created. I'll just click Save. I get to preview my devices again. This is the device we enrolled and who I want to send it to, so we'll click Publish. And then I can see here that the application has been uploaded and assigned to the devices. If I return to my apps view, I can see both 7-Zip and Workspace ONE Assist are on the device. And so I've seen how this looks now from the IT administrator perspective. I can start to get a handle on how I create restrictions or maybe pass Wi-Fi connection details, certificates down to the device, how I can upload applications and send them to the device. There's a lot more that Workspace ONE UEM can enable for your IT administrators and your end users. But this is just an introduction. And so now what we want to do, having seen it from the IT side, is start to look at it from the end user side. How can I see how these restrictions and apps have taken place and just confirm that everything we've configured has worked on the device as we've configured it in the console. So remember that we did three things. We created a restriction profile, which is going to prevent our end users from unenrolling the Windows 10 device. We deployed 7-Zip as on demand, and we deployed Workspace ONE Assist as an auto app. So let's go through and verify each of these things. So in the Windows start bar, I'll just click Windows button, Settings, and then I can navigate to the Accounts page. And under Access Worker School is where I will see my device being enrolled to Workspace ONE UEM. So normally what would happen is if I would click this and I didn't have this restriction configured, I could just click disconnect. And then I would get a message asking if I did want to unenroll. You can see here that it's been changed. So let me just pull up a picture to show before the restriction and profile applied, the user would get this prompt saying that they could unenroll, but this would remove access to resources like email, apps, anything that we've pushed to the user through Workspace ONE UEM. But they could click yes, and that would remove the profile from their account and go through and remove anything that we've configured to be removed when the device is unenrolled. Instead, what our users see now is that it says it cannot be removed by system policy. My only choice is to click yes, and then I remain enrolled. Now, you may not want to do this with bring your own device scenarios if you have users working remotely and it's a personal device that they've enrolled. But if it is a corporate device, this is a great way to ensure that those devices remain compliant, that they're not being subverted. Your policies are applying and making sure that the device is secure and compliant based on your standards. This is a very common profile to push down to make sure that those devices remain secure. So I can actually close these settings out now because I've verified that that's true. And let's go to Intelligent Hub. Now I'll go to the apps page. And I should see a list of applications because I have two pushed down to me. So I can see I have a new apps page. I have 7-zip, and I have Workspace ONE Assist. I can click the little stars here if I want to mark them as favorites, and then those would show up in my favorites tab. I can search for apps here, but we only have two apps, so it's easy enough for me right now to find everything that I'm currently looking for. So if I click 7-zip, you'll see that my prompt is to install it. Remember that this was our on-demand app, so it did not get installed automatically for the user. They don't have 7-zip on the computer yet, but if they wanted it, they could just come and click install. I get notified of how big it is, and then it will be automatically downloaded and appear on my device when it's done. I'll click install. I can see that this has changed now to installing. I got a little toast notification down here. And I also have this download manager where I can see if things have been completed or not, the activity monitor. I can see that 7-zip has started and that it will start to download and then automatically install. I can see, however, that Workspace ONE Assist has already been completed, and that was because we marked Assist as an auto app. So Workspace ONE Assist downloaded to the device and then immediately started trying to install because we had it marked as an auto application. This makes sure that any apps that our end users need to be productive or secure can be pushed automatically, and make sure that these are given with the initial device handoff. This works even if your users are onboarding remotely, and is a great way for them to make sure that they have all of the apps that they need. So I can close the activity monitor. And on Windows, I can confirm here under the recently added section, I can see that Workspace ONE Assist and the 7-zip file manager were both recently installed on the device. I can click Assist and make sure that this loads, and I get the standard privacy prompt, and I can confirm that Assist is installed on my device. And I can do the same thing with 7-zip. And now I can use this app as an end user. So this makes sure that your users, no matter what device they're working off of, know where they can go to get corporate apps and to get them easily. This is a great resource for your end users to make their lives simpler and to keep them secure and compliant, but also getting them the apps that they need when they need them. So I've gone through all these steps here. We've confirmed everything. The last step is to enterprise wipe our device. Now, there's a difference between enterprise wiping and device wiping. Enterprise wiping is removing all of the configurations that we pushed down to the device, such as apps or restrictions or resources. But we're not resetting the device. We're just removing any of the corporate resources that were pushed to it to make sure that when a device is maybe leaving our organization, maybe the employee moves on, or we need to recycle the device for some reason, that those corporate resources are removed based on the policies and the apps that we configure. So because our end user can't unenroll themselves, we need to trigger the enterprise wipe through the Workspace ONE UEM administrator console. I've navigated to devices and list views, and I can see my basic user is enrolled. I can select this device, and under more actions, I can select enterprise wipe. Now I get some notifications about what enterprise wiping is. And then this is the security PIN that I need to enter to authorize it. So I entered 1, 2, 3, 4, but your administrator would just need to put their PIN. And then we can see that the request is submitted, and we can follow the log for details. Basically, all we're looking for here is that the device will get this command just like anything else that was pushed to the device. So just as we got profiles or apps over the air, this unenroll command will come down to the device as well. I can refresh this page periodically, And I can see now that the enrollment column has gone from enrolled to unenrolled. Unenrolled means that it's no longer adhering to any of the resources that we push down, any of the security policies or apps that we configured. So the easiest way to check that is if I go back to my accounts page and under Access Worker School. Previously, if you recall, I had the Workspace ONE UEM enrollment shown here along with Active Directory, but now all I see is the Active Directory. So this verifies that my devices were successfully unenrolled and that those corporate policies and apps will get pulled off of the device. So this has been an introduction to Windows 10 management with Workspace ONE Unified Endpoint Management. I hope that this gave you a great basic overview of what Workspace ONE UEM is able to do for your devices and how you can help manage those devices and make your end users productive, secure, and compliant, no matter where those devices may go. Again, if you have any interest in our other modules, those will be available in the full lab seen here, HOL 225109 DWS, and that is available at labs.hol.vmware.com. Thank you.